12 years after his pregnant wife vanished without a trace, a billionaire CEO gets a call from a foreign number. "Hi sir, I think you're my dad." He pauses, unsure he heard right, before freezing in shock at what the little boy on the phone says next. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're watching us from, and please like this video to support the channel. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Nathan Caldwell had built an empire. From the gleaming windows of his New York skyscraper, he could see the entire city sprawl before him, a testament to his power and success. He had everything: a business that dominated the market, a name that carried weight in every boardroom, a fortune that ensured he would never want for anything. And yet, for all that he had, there was one thing missing, something no amount of wealth or power could replace. Elena. 12 years had passed since she had vanished, leaving behind nothing but a void he had never been able to fill. She had been pregnant then, their child growing inside her, a future he had longed for suddenly ripped away. The police had found no leads. The private investigators he had hired had exhausted every resource. Over the years, theories had run wild. Some believed she had been taken, others whispered that she had left on her own accord. He had refused to believe the latter. He had known her, known the love they shared, and he had clung to that belief even when logic told him to let go. But letting go had never been an option. Now, sitting alone in his office late at night, he ran a hand through his hair, staring at the latest contract he was supposed to sign. The numbers blurred in front of him, his mind unable to focus. His assistant had gone home hours ago, and the city outside was winding down, though he never did. He had made his life about work, because when he wasn't working, he was thinking. And when he was thinking, he was remembering. The shrill ring of his phone cut through the silence. He glanced at the screen, frowning at the unknown number. At this hour, it had to be a mistake, or worse, another journalist digging into his past. He almost ignored it but, on a whim, picked up. "Caldwell," he said, his voice sharp and patient. There was silence on the other end. Then, a small breath, followed by hesitation. "Hi, sir. I think you're my dad." The words didn't register at first. Nathan leaned forward, his grip tightening on the phone. "What did you just say?" I think you're my dad." The voice was young. A boy's voice. Nathan's pulse kicked up, his mind racing to make sense of what he was hearing. He almost asked if this was some kind of prank, but something about the way the boy spoke, cautious, unsure, made him pause. He didn't sound like a child making a joke. He sounded nervous. Nathan forced himself to steady his breath. "Who are you?" "My name is Leo." A pause. "I'm 11. 11. Nathan felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He could barely find his voice. "Who is your mother?" Another hesitation. Then softly, "Elena." Nathan shot up from his chair, knocking over a glass of water that had been sitting on his desk. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. "That's not possible." His voice came out rough, choked. "Elena is..." He stopped himself, realizing he didn't even know how to finish that sentence. "Dead? Gone? Missing?" Leo didn't speak right away, as if unsure how to respond. She's my mom," he finally said. "I've lived with her my whole life." Nathan sank back into his chair, gripping the edge of his desk like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. His thoughts spun, colliding in ways that made his head ache. Elena was alive. She had been alive this whole time. And she had kept their child from him. His voice was lower now, edged with something dangerously close to pain. "Where is she?" "She's here, but she doesn't know I called." Nathan exhaled sharply. "What do you mean she doesn't know?" Leo hesitated. She never told me about you." "Not really. But I found some stuff. Old pictures. Letters she never sent. I thought maybe..." His voice caught. "I just wanted to know." Nathan closed his eyes, trying to steady himself, but it was impossible. His mind was a battlefield of emotions, relief, fury, disbelief, hope. His son, his child, had been out there for 11 years, growing up without him. And Elena. She had let it happen. "Where are you, Leo?" His voice was quieter now, strained. "I can't tell you." Nathan clenched his jaw. "Why not?" There was a slight shuffle on the other end of the line. "I think she's scared. I don't know why. But please don't be mad at her." Nathan could barely process the words. His grip on the phone tightened, his thoughts a tangled mess. He needed answers. He needed to see this boy. He needed to see Elena. But more than anything, he needed to know why. "Leo," he said, his voice softening despite the storm inside him. "Listen to me. I'm not mad at you. But I need to understand. Can you tell me where you are?" There was another pause, long enough that Nathan thought he might not answer. Then, finally, a whisper. "Spain." Nathan's stomach dropped. He wasn't sure what he had been expecting, but an entire ocean between them, wasn't it? "I have to go," Leo said suddenly, his voice urgent. "She's coming." "Wait," Nathan said quickly. "Leo." But the line went dead. Nathan pulled the phone away, staring at it like it might give him more answers if he just held on long enough. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, none of them making sense. Elena was alive. His son had been growing up on the other side of the world. And he had spent 12 years believing he had lost them both. A slow, burning determination settled into his chest. He wasn't going to let them disappear again. Nathan sat frozen in his office, his phone still clutched in his hand, the silence pressing against him like a weight he couldn't lift. His mind replayed the call over and over again, dissecting every word, every pause, every hesitation in that small, uncertain voice. 11 years. A lifetime. His son. The realization settled into his chest like an ache, something deep and raw and impossible to ignore. Elena was alive. She had survived. She had raised their child, built a life without him, and never once reached out. The betrayal clawed at him, but beneath it, stronger than the anger, was the need for answers. He wasn't the type of man who let things go. He never had been. That was why his company had risen to where it was, why he had built his name into something untouchable. He pursued what he wanted with relentless determination, and right now, there was only one thing he wanted. He needed to see Leo. He needed to see Elena. It took less than an hour to trace the number. His security team had contacts all over the world, and when he called in a favor, the answer came quickly. A small coastal town in Spain. A quiet place, out of the way, the kind of place someone went when they wanted to disappear. When they wanted to hide. Nathan had been to Spain before, but always for business, for meetings in sleek office buildings, for deals that shaped industries. He had never imagined he'd be flying there to find the family he thought he had lost. "You're really doing this?" Damien leaned against the desk, arms crossed, watching him with an expression caught between concern and disbelief. Nathan didn't look up as he booked the flight. "I don't have a choice." "Of course you do. You could pretend that call never happened." Nathan's jaw tightened. He finally looked up, meeting Damien's gaze. "Would you?" Damien exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "No. But you need to be prepared. What if she doesn't want to be found? What if she fights this?" Nathan clenched his fist. The thought had already crossed his mind, again and again, but he didn't care. She had stolen years from him. She had kept his son a secret. He wasn't going to let her disappear again. The flight was long, but he barely slept. He kept picturing Leo's voice, the hesitation, the uncertainty, the way he had asked him not to be mad at her. It didn't matter. He was mad. He was furious. But more than anything, he was desperate. When the plane touched down in Spain, he wasted no time. His driver took him through winding roads, past hills and vineyards, until finally, they reached the town. It was beautiful in a way that felt untouched by time, whitewashed buildings with red-tiled roofs, narrow streets lined with small cafes and bakeries, the scent of the ocean lingering in the warm air. It was nothing like the world he knew. Nothing like New York. It was quiet. Hidden. Safe. And then he saw him. Leo was kicking a soccer ball against a low stone wall, his focus intense, his movements precise. Nathan felt his breath hitch in his throat. The resemblance was undeniable. The sharp eyes, the way his jaw clenched when he concentrated, the same stubborn tilt of his chin. Nathan saw himself in every movement, in every small detail. His son. The impact of it was overwhelming, a feeling so strong it nearly knocked him off balance. For years he had convinced himself that his child had never been born, that Elena had taken that part of his future with her when she disappeared. And yet, here he was. 11 years old. Alive. Real. He took a step forward, his hands clenching at his sides, but before he could get closer, his breath caught again. Because then, he saw her. Elena stepped out of a small cafe, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear as she carried a bag of groceries. She looked different, softer, the weight of time visible in the gentle lines around her eyes. But she was still Elena. The same woman he had fallen in love with, the same woman who had disappeared from his life without a word. And then, as if sensing something, she turned. Their eyes met. She froze. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence, the world narrowing to the space between them. Nathan felt everything at once: anger, confusion, pain, relief. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes were wide, filled with something unreadable, something close to panic. Leo kicked the ball too hard, sending it rolling down the street. He ran after it, completely unaware of the storm unfolding just a few feet away. Nathan took a slow step forward, his voice quiet but firm. "Elena." She blinked, as if waking from a dream. Then, without warning, she turned and hurried into the cafe. Nathan's jaw clenched. She was running. Again. Not this time. He followed, pushing the door open. The cafe was small, cozy, filled with the scent of fresh bread and coffee. A few customers sat at the tables, glancing up in mild curiosity, but Nathan didn't care. His eyes locked onto Elena as she backed toward the counter, gripping the edge as if steadying herself. She exhaled shakily. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was cold. "And you shouldn't have left." A flicker of something, pain, regret, flashed across her face, but it was gone in an instant. She shook her head. "You don't understand." Nathan took another step closer, his voice low. "Then make me understand." She glanced toward the door, her body tense, as if weighing whether to run again. But then Leo's voice called from outside, and she flinched. Nathan watched her closely, his chest tightening. "He doesn't know who I am, does he?" Elena closed her eyes for a brief second, then looked at him. "No." His fists clenched at his sides. "Why?" Her breath hitched. "Because I didn't know how to tell him." Nathan's throat tightened, the weight of those words crashing over him. 12 years. She had been alive all this time, raising their son, making that decision alone. His voice was barely a whisper. "You had no right." Elena looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Guilt. Pain. Love. She took a deep breath, her voice unsteady. "You weren't supposed to find us." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Well, I did." And he wasn't leaving without answers. Nathan stood in the middle of the small cafe, his presence too large, too overwhelming for the quiet space. The hum of conversation had dimmed, the few patrons pretending not to listen, but he didn't care. His world had narrowed to the woman standing before him, the woman he had spent years searching for. Elena. Alive. Real. Holding a truth he had never expected, a son, a child who had grown up without him. Elena's hands gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at him as if he were a ghost from another life. Nathan's voice was sharp, edged with something he couldn't contain. "Why, Elena?" She inhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Not here." "Then where?" His voice was quieter now, but no less intense. Because I'm not leaving without answers. She swallowed, glancing toward the door as if Leo might walk in at any moment. Come with me. She led him through the back of the cafe, through a small hallway that opened into a private courtyard shaded by an old olive tree. It was quiet here, the sounds of the street muffled by the thick stone walls. The moment they were alone, she turned to him, arms wrapped around herself as if she could shield herself from what was coming. Nathan didn't wait. Why did you leave? His voice was raw, stripped bare of anything but pain. Why didn't you tell me? Elena's breath hitched, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You think I planned this? She whispered. You think I wanted to disappear? His jaw tightened. You let me believe you were dead. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she made no move to wipe them away. I almost was. Nathan's stomach clenched. What are you talking about? She looked away, staring at the stone path beneath them, and for a moment, he thought she might not answer. But then, her voice, quiet and broken, filled the space between them. I had complications during my pregnancy. The night I disappeared, I collapsed. Someone found me, rushed me to a hospital miles away from the city. I wasn't conscious for days, Nathan. I nearly died. Her voice wavered, and she forced herself to meet his eyes. By the time I woke up, everything had changed. Nathan's chest tightened, a terrible image forming in his mind, Elena, fragile and alone, lying in a hospital bed, scared and waiting for him. Why didn't anyone contact me? I didn't have my phone. They didn't know who I was, and by the time I could ask for help, you weren't there. He stepped forward, shaking his head. That's not possible. I never stopped looking for you. She let out a sharp breath, as if his words physically hurt. But I didn't know that. All I knew was that days turned into weeks, and you never came. She pressed a hand to her chest. I thought you'd moved on. Nathan clenched his jaw. I hired investigators, ran ads, put out private searches. I tore the world apart trying to find you. A pained smile flickered across her face. But I didn't see any of that. I was alone, recovering, terrified. And then, when I was strong enough to leave, She hesitated, her voice catching. I saw the rumors. He frowned. What rumors? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. That you had remarried. Nathan froze. What? I saw it in a magazine. Pictures of you with some woman at a gala, the headlines saying you had moved on, that you had started a new life. Her voice was small now, like she was afraid to say it out loud. I thought I was too late. Nathan's mind reeled. He remembered those headlines. The woman had been a business associate, someone he had been photographed with at a charity event. The media had speculated, twisted the story into something it wasn't. But he had ignored it, too consumed with grief to care about correcting the narrative. He had never imagined it would be the reason Elena never came back. Elena! His voice cracked. It wasn't true. Her lips trembled. I didn't know that. She blinked, tears slipping down her cheeks. So I ran. I convinced myself you were better off without me. I thought it would hurt less if I stayed away. Nathan let out a shaky breath, running a hand down his face. Do you know what you took from me? Her expression crumbled. I know. 11 years, Elena. 11 years. I missed everything, his first steps, his first words, every single moment I should have been there for. His voice cracked with emotion, anger and heartbreak woven together so tightly he couldn't separate them. I should have been there. Elena covered her mouth, muffling a sob. I know. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Nathan turned away, dragging a hand through his hair, trying to breathe through the overwhelming pain. Then, a soft voice. I never stopped loving you. He closed his eyes, her words slicing through him like a blade. When he turned back, she was watching him, eyes full of regret, of longing. And he hated that some part of him still ached for her, still wanted to close the space between them. But it wasn't that simple. It could never be that simple. You should have told me. His voice was hoarse. I had a right to know. She nodded, wiping at her face. I was scared. He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. I don't even know what to do with this, Elena. With any of this. She swallowed hard. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, don't take him from me. Nathan's eyes darkened. That's not what I want. He paused, his voice firm. But I am going to be in his life. You don't get to take that from me. Her breast shuddered, but she nodded. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even understanding. But it was the start of something. Nathan turned toward the doorway, where faint voices could be heard from the street. His son was out there. A boy who didn't even know who he really was. He looked back at Elena one last time. This isn't over. And then, he walked away. Nathan barely slept that night. He lay awake in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying every moment from the day before. Seeing Elena again, hearing her voice, learning the truth, every revelation had knocked the air out of him, but nothing had hit him harder than the sight of Leo. His son. 11 years old. A stranger and yet, undeniably his. The weight of it pressed on him, unfamiliar and overwhelming. He had spent over a decade believing his child had never been born, that he had lost them both before he even had a chance to be a father. And now, here he was, walking and breathing and living a life Nathan had never been a part of. The next morning, he found himself parked near the cafe, watching as the town slowly woke up. People greeted each other on the streets, shop owners propped open their doors, and the scent of freshly baked bread drifted through the air. It was a world so different from his own, a place where time seemed to move slower. He had built his life in a city that never stopped, where power and success dictated every decision. But here, none of that mattered. Here, he wasn't the billionaire CEO. He was just a man trying to figure out how to be a father to a boy who didn't know him. Leo appeared a few minutes later, dribbling a soccer ball down the street, his focus entirely on the ball at his feet. Nathan stepped out of the car and approached cautiously, unsure of how to start. He wasn't used to feeling out of place, but in this moment, he had no idea what to say. Leo stopped when he noticed him, his hands stuffing into the pockets of his shorts. You again, he said, his voice neutral. Nathan managed a small smile. Yeah. Me again. There was a pause, then Leo tilted his head slightly. Are you gonna tell my mom I shouldn't have called you? No, Nathan said immediately. I'm glad you did. Leo's brows furrowed. She was really upset. Nathan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah. I think we both were. Leo studied him for a moment, then nodded at the ball by his feet. Do you play? Nathan hesitated before answering. Not much. I was more into baseball growing up. Leo snorted. That's a boring sport. Nathan smirked. Says the kid who's never been to a real game. Leo kicked the ball lightly, glancing at him again. You live in New York, right? It's loud there. It is, Nathan admitted. But you'd like it. There's always something happening. Leo shrugged. I like it here. It's quiet. Nathan could see that. The slower pace, the predictability of small-town life, it made sense why Elena had stayed. But he also saw something else in Leo's expression, something uncertain, like he wasn't sure what to make of Nathan being here. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to, Nathan said carefully. But I'd like to get to know you. Leo shrugged again, but there was a flicker of something, curiosity. You don't seem like a dad. Nathan chuckled. Yeah? What does a dad seem like? Leo thought for a moment. I don't know. But if you're my dad, why weren't you here before? The words hit harder than Nathan expected. He crouched down so they were at eye level. Because I didn't know you existed. If I had, I would have been here. No matter what. Leo kicked the ball again, watching it roll a few feet away. You're not gonna leave now, are you? Nathan's chest tightened. No. I'm not. Leo looked at him for a long moment, like he was trying to decide if he believed him. Then, finally, he nodded. Okay. That was all. Just okay. But it was enough. Over the next few days, Nathan made a point to be around, to show Leo that he wasn't just passing through. He met him after school, watched him play soccer with his friends, learned which bakery had the best pastries and which cafe made the hot chocolate Leo liked. It was small things, things Nathan had never thought about before, but they mattered. One afternoon, he found a baseball and a mitt in a small sports shop and bought them without thinking. When he handed them to Leo, the boy frowned. What am I supposed to do with this? Nathan smirked. I'm gonna teach you. Leo eyed him warily. I already have a sport. Then consider this expanding your skill set. Leo sighed dramatically but took the mitt. Fine. But if it's boring, I'm going back to soccer. Nathan laughed. Deal. They spent the afternoon in an open field near the cliffs, the salty breeze rolling in from the ocean as Nathan showed Leo how to throw and catch properly. At first, Leo was reluctant, his throws sloppy, his attention drifting. But then he got the hang of it, his competitive nature kicking in. By the time the sun was setting, he was grinning, cheeks flushed, his guard lowered just enough for Nathan to see the boy underneath. Elena watched them from the distance, her arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't interfered, hadn't tried to stop Nathan from seeing Leo, but she had kept her distance, observing silently. Nathan knew she was afraid. Afraid of what his presence meant, afraid of how this would change the life she had built. He didn't blame her. That evening, as he walked Leo home, the boy suddenly asked, Are you mad at my mom? Nathan hesitated before answering. I was. I still am, a little. But that's not your fault. Leo was quiet for a moment. She didn't do it to hurt you. Nathan glanced down at him. Then why did she do it? Leo shrugged. Maybe she was scared. Nathan exhaled, nodding slowly. Yeah. Maybe she was. When they reached the cafe, Leo hesitated at the door. He shifted on his feet, glancing at Nathan before saying, If I learn baseball, will you watch one of my soccer games? Nathan's chest tightened, but he smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Leo nodded, then slipped inside. Nathan stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door, his heart heavier than it had been in a long time. But for the first time since arriving in Spain, something else was there too, hope. Nathan hadn't planned on staying this long, but as the days stretched into weeks, leaving became harder to imagine. The first few days had been about Leo, about proving to him that he wasn't going anywhere, that he wasn't just a visitor passing through his life. But as he spent more time in the quiet seaside town, something else became impossible to ignore. Elena. She tried to keep her distance at first, tried to pretend that his presence didn't unsettle her, but Nathan could see through it. He noticed the way her breath hitched when he caught her off guard, the way her fingers trembled slightly when he brushed past her, the way her gaze lingered on him when she thought he wasn't looking. Despite everything, despite the years and the pain and the choices that had separated them, the pull between them still existed. He felt it in the small moments. In the way their conversation stretched longer each night, in the way she still laughed at his dry humor, in the way they fell into old rhythms so naturally it was like no time had passed at all. One evening, after a long day at the cafe, Elena found him sitting on the back patio, watching the sky darken over the sea. She hesitated in the doorway, as if debating whether or not to join him. Wine? He asked, lifting the bottle beside him. She hesitated a moment longer before stepping outside, taking the glass he poured for her. The air was cool, carrying the scent of salt and earth. It was quiet, the town settling into its slow, peaceful night. Elena, he said after a moment, his voice softer than it had been in years. Why here? She sipped her wine, staring out at the dark waves. Because it was far enough away. From me? She didn't answer right away. From the life I used to have. From everything that reminded me of what I lost. She glanced at him. Including you? His chest tightened, but he kept his voice even. You didn't lose me. You left me. She flinched slightly, her fingers tightening around her glass. I know. There was a long silence before she finally whispered, "I regret it." Nathan exhaled slowly. "Then why did you stay away?" She turned toward him then, something raw in her expression. "Because I convinced myself it was better that way. I thought you had moved on. I thought if I came back, I'd ruin everything." His jaw clenched. "You wouldn't have ruined anything." She let out a breath that sounded close to a laugh, though there was no humor in it. "I don't know that." Nathan looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he saw it. The loneliness. She had built a life here, but she hadn't truly let herself live. She had survived, raised Leo, found a way to move forward, but she had never let herself heal. "Elena," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you were never unwanted. I spent years searching for you." Her breath hitched, and for a moment she looked like she might break. "I know," she whispered. "And I hate that I didn't know it then." The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken, something lingering from a love that had never truly faded. He could feel the pull, the weight of everything unsaid pressing between them. Her eyes flickered to his lips for the briefest second, and for a moment, he almost closed the distance between them. But then, she pulled away, stepping back, breaking the spell. "I should go inside," she said softly. Nathan watched her, his heart hammering in his chest, but he nodded. "Yeah." She hesitated as if she wanted to say something else, but instead, she turned and disappeared into the house. Nathan remained outside, staring at the empty space where she had been, feeling the ache of everything they had lost. Neither of them was ready. Not yet. But for the first time in 12 years, he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The air between them remained charged in the days that followed. Nathan could feel it every time Elena looked at him, every time she caught herself smiling at something he said and quickly masked it with hesitation. She wasn't ready to let go of her fears, but he wasn't backing down. Not when he had spent 12 years believing he had lost everything. Not when he finally had a chance to put his family back together. Leo, on the other hand, had fully accepted Nathan's presence in his life. Their bond had strengthened over the past few weeks, and though Leo still held pieces of himself back, still watched Nathan carefully, testing his presence, there was trust building between them. Nathan knew it in the way Leo waited for him after school, in the way he asked about Nathan's world, in the way his eyes lit up when Nathan shared stories about growing up in New York. So one evening, as they sat outside the cafe after dinner, Nathan leaned forward, hands clasped in front of him. "Come with me to New York." Elena, who had been absently stirring her tea, froze. "What?" Nathan looked at her, then at Leo, whose eyes had gone wide. "Come visit. Both of you. Let me show you my world." Leo's face broke into an eager grin. "Really?" Nathan nodded. "Really. You should see where I live, where I work. Meet the people in my life." He glanced at Elena. "You should both see it." Elena set down her spoon carefully, her expression unreadable. "Nathan, I want you to come." He cut in before she could list a million reasons she would say no. "I don't want to just drop in on your life here and leave. I want you to see where you belong in mine." Leo sat up straighter. "I want to go." Elena hesitated, biting her lip. "Leo." "Mom, come on." He turned to Nathan. "I've never been to America before." Nathan smirked. "Then it's about time." Elena sighed, rubbing her temples. "We have a life here, Nathan. I'm not asking you to give that up," he said gently. "Just come see mine." Leo grabbed her arm. "Please, Mom? Just for a little while?" Elena exhaled slowly, eyes flickering between Nathan and Leo. He could see the battle inside her. The part of her that wanted to protect the life she had built, and the part of her that had never truly stopped wanting more. Finally, she looked at Nathan and whispered, "Just a visit." His chest eased. "Just a visit." The excitement in Leo's eyes was enough to solidify her decision, and within a week, they were boarding a plane to New York. Nathan watched them closely during the flight. Leo was glued to the window, taking in everything with wide-eyed wonder, while Elena was more reserved, her fingers twisting in her lap as if she still wasn't sure this was the right decision. He didn't push. He would let New York speak for itself. When they landed, Leo practically bounced with energy, his head swiveling in every direction as they stepped out into the bustling city. "This is crazy," he breathed. "Everything's so tall." Nathan chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Wait till you see it from the top." He had arranged for them to stay at his penthouse, a sleek space overlooking the skyline, so different from the cozy home they had in Spain. Elena stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows that first evening, staring out over the city, lost in thought. Nathan didn't disturb her. He knew what was going through her mind, memories of the life she had once been a part of, the life she had left behind. The next few days were a whirlwind for Leo. Nathan took him to his office, let him sit in his chair, introduced him to his team. The boy was in awe of everything, from the towering buildings to the flashing billboards in Times Square. But more than anything, Nathan noticed how much Leo liked being by his side. He asked questions, absorbed everything, looked at Nathan with admiration that made something tighten in his chest. One night, after a long day of sightseeing, Leo flopped onto the couch with an exhausted grin. "This place is amazing." Nathan sat beside him. "You think you could see yourself here?" Leo nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah. I mean, it's really different from home, but it's cool." Nathan's gaze drifted to Elena, who was watching them with an unreadable expression. He had been waiting, giving her space, but now it was time to make things clear. Later that night, when Leo had gone to bed, Nathan found Elena on the balcony, arms wrapped around herself as she looked out at the lights. "You still love it here," he said quietly. She didn't turn. "It's familiar. But that doesn't mean I belong." He stepped closer, voice soft but firm. "You do," she exhaled, shaking her head. "Nathan, I don't just want to be Leo's father," he interrupted. "I want us to be a family." She turned then, eyes glistening. "You say that now, but what if we don't fit into this world? You have a life here. A powerful, high-profile life. I've seen the way people look at you, the way they hang on your every word. I spent years living quietly, protecting Leo from that kind of attention." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I would never let anything happen to him." "I know," she whispered. "But that doesn't change the fact that we're from two different worlds now." He reached out, cupping her face gently. "Then let's build one together." Her breath hitched, her hands gripping his wrists, and for a moment, it felt like she might let herself believe it. But then she pulled away, stepping back. "I don't know if I can." Nathan swallowed the frustration that rose in his chest. "What are you afraid of?" She blinked, looking at him with something close to desperation. "Of getting hurt again." Nathan's chest tightened. "I'm not leaving, Elena. Not again." She closed her eyes, and he could see the war inside her. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. Nathan exhaled and took a step back, giving her space. "Just think about it." She nodded slowly, and as she turned back toward the city lights, Nathan knew one thing for certain. He wasn't giving up on them. The days in New York had been some of the best of Nathan's life. For the first time, he wasn't just observing Leo's life from the outside, he was part of it. He was there to hear his son's excitement over the smallest things, the thrill of seeing the city from the top of the Empire State Building, the way his eyes widened at his first baseball game, the eager way he listened to Nathan's stories about growing up in a place so different from his own. Every night, Nathan found himself memorizing the sound of Leo's laughter, the way his son had started leaning into his presence, trusting it. It had taken time, but Nathan could feel the walls between them crumbling. And Elena. She was still hesitant, still cautious, but he could see the cracks in her resistance too. He saw it in the way her eyes softened when she watched him with Leo, in the way she lingered in conversations with him, in the way she reached for his hand without thinking before quickly pulling away. She wasn't ready to admit it, but she still loved him. Nathan knew it with certainty now. But good things never lasted long in his world. It started with whispers, small ripples of speculation in the media. A picture snapped outside his office, a grainy photo of him walking with Elena and Leo, the headline questioning who they were. Then came the online theories, resurfacing the mystery of Elena's disappearance all those years ago. The rumors spiraled quickly. Was she a mistress he had hidden away? Had she left him? Had he abandoned her? They dug into her past, into her life, twisting details until the truth was drowned in speculation. And then the paparazzi arrived. It happened outside a restaurant. They had just finished dinner, Leo still grinning from ear to ear about the burger he claimed was the best thing he had ever eaten, when they stepped onto the sidewalk and were immediately met with flashing lights and shouted questions. "Elena, why did you disappear? Did Nathan pay you off to stay quiet? Who's the boy? Is he really Nathan's son?" Leo froze, his small body going rigid as cameras swarmed them. Elena's hand clamped around his wrist, her face paling as she pulled him closer. Nathan immediately stepped in front of them, shielding them from the chaos. His security detail rushed forward, pushing the photographers back, but the damage had already been done. Elena's breathing was shaky as they slid into the car, her fingers still gripping Leo's arm like she was afraid he'd disappear. Nathan turned to her, his voice low and steady. "It's going to be okay." She didn't answer. That night, Elena was silent. She barely spoke at dinner, barely met his eyes. She tucked Leo into bed, stroking his hair until he fell asleep, then retreated to the balcony, staring out at the city like she was trying to make sense of it all. Nathan found her there an hour later, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. He could already see it, the way her body was tensed, the way her mind was working through something she wasn't saying yet. "This is exactly what I didn't want for him," she said quietly, still not looking at him. Nathan exhaled, stepping closer. "It won't always be like this. The media will move on." She let out a small, bitter laugh. "Will they?" He reached for her, but she pulled away, turning to face him fully now. "Nathan, this is your life. I thought I could handle bringing Leo into it, but I can't. It's too much. He shouldn't have to grow up with cameras in his face, with people digging through his past like it's entertainment." His chest tightened. "Elena, I can't do this." The words landed like a punch to the gut. His heart pounded. "You're scared. I get that. But running isn't the answer." Her eyes glistened in the dim light. "It was never supposed to be permanent, Nathan. We were supposed to visit. That's all. But it doesn't have to end here," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We could be a family." Her breast shuddered. "In your world. But I don't belong here. Leo doesn't belong here." Nathan's jaw clenched. "That's not true." She swallowed hard, shaking her head. "I have to think about what's best for him. And leaving is what's best?" His voice cracked, his fists tightening at his sides. "Taking him away from me, again, is what's best?" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You don't understand. Then make me understand," he pleaded. She hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want him to lose himself in your world. I don't want him to feel like he has to live up to something, to be someone he's not." She sucked in a shaky breath. "And I don't want to lose myself in it either." Nathan's throat felt tight, like he was choking on everything he wanted to say. He could see her mind was already made up, that she was doing what she thought was right, even if it was tearing them both apart. "Elena, don't do this," he whispered. She let out a broken breath. "I have to." The next morning, she packed their bags. Leo was confused, upset, but he didn't fight her. Nathan could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the way he kept looking at him like he was waiting for Nathan to tell him it wasn't happening. Nathan knelt in front of him, gripping his shoulders gently. "This isn't goodbye, okay? I'm still your dad. No matter what." Leo blinked hard, his lip trembling. "Are you gonna visit?" Nathan swallowed past the lump in his throat. "Try and stop me." Leo threw his arms around him, holding tight, and Nathan clutched him just as fiercely. And then, just like that, they were gone. Nathan stood in his empty penthouse, staring at the door, feeling the weight of their absence like a crushing force. He had gotten a taste of what it was like, having them there, having them with him, and now, it was ripped away. But if Elena thought this was the end, she was wrong. He wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. Spain was quiet in a way New York never was. The hum of the waves, the distant chatter of the townspeople, the warmth of the sun against the old cobblestone streets, it was the kind of place where time moved slower. But for Leo, it didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt wrong. He missed Nathan. The first few days after they returned, he pretended everything was fine. He played soccer with his friends, ate his favorite meals, did his homework like nothing had changed. But at night, when he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he felt the emptiness settle in. He had spent his whole life never knowing what it was like to have a father. And then, for a short time, he had one. And now, he was gone again. Elena saw it. She wasn't blind to the way Leo's shoulders slumped when he thought she wasn't looking, how he no longer talked about New York with the same excitement. She told herself it would pass, that he would adjust. But deep down, she knew better. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Leo pushed his food around his plate, barely eating. Elena sighed. "Leo, sweetheart, what's wrong?" He looked up at her, something sharp in his expression. "Why do you always run when things get hard?" The words hit her like a punch. She swallowed, her fingers tightening around her fork. "That's not fair." Leo frowned. "Isn't it? You ran away from Dad before I was even born. You ran away from him again. And now..." His voice wavered. "Now I don't have him either." Elena's throat tightened. "Leo, I thought you said we came back here because it was what's best for me." He cut in. "But I don't feel better. I feel worse." Elena sat frozen, her heart pounding. Leo shoved his chair back, standing abruptly. "I'm going to bed." She watched him walk away, her hands shaking. That night, as she lay awake in her own bed, Leo's words repeated in her head like a drumbeat. "Why do you always run when things get hard?" The truth was, she didn't know how to stop. She had spent so many years convincing herself that she had done the right thing, that staying away from Nathan had been the only way to protect Leo, to protect herself. But now, with every passing day, she realized she hadn't just been protecting them, she had been robbing them of something they needed. Nathan. She turned onto her side, eyes squeezing shut. He had been right. He had told her she belonged with him. That Leo belonged with him. And instead of listening, she had walked away. But had she really? Because if she had truly let him go, why did her heart still ache for him? 3 days later, Nathan received an envelope at his office. No return address, no explanation. Just a simple white envelope with his name on it. Frowning, he tore it open, tipping its contents into his palm. A plane ticket. One way. To Spain. His breath caught, pulse quickening as he stared at it. Elena. She had sent it. She had to have. For a long moment, he just sat there, gripping the ticket like it might disappear if he let go. He had spent weeks trying to figure out how to fix this, how to get her to see what he already knew, that they belonged together. And now, she was giving him away back. He didn't hesitate. Hours later, he was on a plane. Spain was the same as he had left it, but it felt different now, like it was waiting for him. He took a cab straight to the shore, the place where he knew she would be. And she was. Elena stood by the water, arms wrapped around herself as the wind pulled at her hair. She didn't turn when she heard his footsteps, but he knew she felt him there. Nathan came to stand beside her, the waves crashing at their feet. He took a slow breath. "I wasn't sure if you'd let me find you again." She closed her eyes for a moment. "I wasn't sure either." He turned toward her fully, voice rough. "Elena." Finally, she faced him. Her eyes were shining, filled with so many emotions he couldn't begin to name them all. "I can't do this without you," she whispered. His chest tightened. "Then don't." She let out a shaky breath, and he took her hands in his, gripping them tightly. "I've already lost you once. I won't lose you again." Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she nodded, the last of her walls crumbling. I'm done running. Nathan exhaled, something inside him breaking open as he pulled her into his arms. And then they kissed. It wasn't the desperate kiss of lovers reuniting after years apart. It wasn't a kiss full of apologies or regrets. It was something deeper. A promise. When they finally pulled apart, Elena laughed softly through her tears. Leo is going to be so mad I didn't bring him with me. Nathan smiled. Then let's go get him. They walked back together, hand in hand. When Leo saw Nathan standing in the doorway, his eyes went wide, disbelief flickering over his face before it was replaced by something else, relief. Nathan opened his arms, and Leo didn't hesitate. He ran straight into them, gripping his father tightly. This time, there was no leaving. This time, they chose love. They chose family. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the cliffs that overlooked the sea. A warm breeze rolled through the air, carrying the scent of salt and wildflowers. It was the perfect evening, the kind that made time feel slower, softer. The kind that felt like home. Nathan stood at the altar, adjusting the cuffs of his suit as he exhaled slowly. It wasn't nerves that made his heart pound, it was anticipation, the overwhelming feeling of knowing that after everything, this moment had finally arrived. A year ago, he had walked away from Spain thinking he had lost Elena forever. Now, he was standing in the very place they had first fallen in love, waiting for her to become his wife again. Leo stood between him and the officiant, straightening his small tuxedo with an exaggerated amount of care. He caught Nathan watching him and smirked. You look nervous. Nathan chuckled. Not even a little. Leo squinted at him. You're sweating. Nathan raised a brow. That's called being warm. Leo grinned. If you mess up your vows, I'm totally making fun of you forever. Nathan ruffled his son's hair, unable to contain the happiness that filled him. Leo had changed so much in a year. He was taller, more confident, and more than anything, he was happy. They had spent the last 12 months building a life together, one that blended both of their worlds in a way that made sense. They split their time between Spain and New York, choosing the best of both. Elena had slowly let go of her fears, embracing the life she had once left behind while holding on to the quiet beauty of the home she had built. Leo had adjusted seamlessly, spending half the year going to school in Spain, the other half in New York. He had learned to love baseball just as much as soccer, something Nathan took great pride in reminding him. More than anything, they had become a family. And now, this wedding, this moment, was the final piece. The soft sound of music filled the air, and Nathan turned, his breath catching as Elena stepped into view. She looked radiant, her white dress flowing with the wind, her dark hair pinned back just enough to reveal the delicate curve of her neck. But it wasn't just how she looked, it was the way she looked at him, like there was nowhere else in the world she would rather be. Leo leaned closer to him, whispering, "She's not running away this time." Nathan swallowed, his chest tightening. "No. She's not." Elena reached the altar, and Nathan took her hands in his thumbs brushing against her skin as he whispered, "You're sure about this?" She smiled softly. "I was always sure about you." The officiant began speaking, but Nathan barely heard him. He was too focused on her, on the way her fingers tightened around his, on the way her eyes held his without hesitation. When it was time for their vows, Elena's voice was steady, filled with warmth. "Nathan, I spent years running, convincing myself that I was protecting myself, protecting Leo. But I wasn't. I was just afraid. Afraid of losing something I had never really let myself have. But you never stopped fighting for us. For me. And I finally understand that love isn't about running away from fear. It's about facing it together. So today, I promise that I will never run again. I will love you always." Nathan's throat was tight as he looked at her, at the woman who had always been his, even when she had been gone. He let out a slow breath and said, "Elena, 12 years ago, I lost you. I searched for you everywhere, But I never stopped believing that somehow, somewhere, you were still mine. And now, standing here, I finally understand why. Because no matter where life took us, no matter how much time passed, you were always meant to come back to me. To us. And I swear to you, for the rest of our lives, I will never let go. Leo wiped at his eyes dramatically. Okay, that was actually really good. Elena let out a soft laugh, squeezing Nathan's hands. When the officiant finally said, "You may kiss the bride," Nathan didn't hesitate. He pulled Elena close, kissing her deeply, feeling the warmth of her, the certainty of her, knowing that this time, it was forever. As they turned, hand in hand, Leo grabbed both of their arms, beaming. "Does this mean I get extra wedding cake?" Nathan laughed. "Kid, you can have as much cake as you want." Their friends and family cheered as they walked down the aisle together, the sun setting behind them, the waves rolling in gently against the shore. A love story that had come full circle. A family, finally whole. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a like, it really helps out the channel. And if you want more heartwarming and emotional stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this one, I'd love to hear your reactions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.